Warning. Warning.
This show contains mature content. Listener discretion is advised.
Are you ready to get your mind blown?
One angry New York City Puerto Rican decided to start a radio show, determined to piss the world off by shoving a mirror in front of society's face. He kicked them in the balls.
What are you? Who are you?
This is the Crotch Shot Radio Show. Crotch Shot Radio Show.
This is not a test. This is a broadcast transmission.
We're going to stay on the air.
And now, the Whippy.
Yeah! Welcome to the Crouch Out Radio Show, where we kick the issues in the balls. We are on an epic war against bullshit. We would do anything and everything to expose bullshit. The ends sometimes justify the means. So if you're angry and want the truth exposed, then strap in and prepare to be shocked. This is Smash Mouth Talk. If you can't accept that, then fuck off. I'm your host, Louie B. I takes no bullshit from nobodies. I actually seek out the bullshit and expose it to the world and chop it up into nice, easy to digest chunks for you. Today will not be any different. I am honored to have two compatriots, comrades, if you will, if we were in communist Russia. If I'm speaking to some Bernie Sanders fans, I need to speak in your good jargon so you understand. I am honored to have Senor Kyle Reardon and Shane. Kyle Reardon, you could check out his blog at The Last Bastille. And also Shane, he does a show called Liberty Under Attack. Both of them are, well, I would say former members of the Patriot movement. Because they've kept it too real. Kyle and Shane, you both heard on this show before, and today we're going to be talking about the Bundy insurrection, or the bundy-standoff that's going on in Oregon. I know a lot of people are posting about this on Facebook, and we want to dispel some misconceptions, and we also want to talk about what's really going on and what possibly could be going on and what it means for you. So without further ado, gentlemen, thank you for coming on.
Oh, not a problem, Louie. I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, this kind of started last night. This is kind of like a last-minute throw-on show, because I was talking to you, Shane, about this, and the more we talked about it, the more angrier I was getting, because this just, it just seems like, well, I don't want to give it up too soon, but it's fuckery afoot, if the saying goes, as the saying goes.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's definitely an interesting situation going on up in Oregon right now, and there's a lot of history behind it that hopefully by now most people are aware of it. But if they aren't, they're definitely going to get an earful of it this evening.
Yeah, like I said, a lot of people are posting about it. Mostly leftist or liberals are posting about this, and of course they're calling them racists, because they just happen to be white, even though from all the reports that I've read and the news videos I've seen, not one racist remark. So, in fact, that's one of the misconceptions I want to talk about. That from this article from usuncut.com, with an article that says, "I studied Oregon's militia movement. Here's 5 things you need to know," by Mr. Spencer Sunshine, or I assume that's a Mister. You never know nowadays because gender is fluid, I guess. This is the number one on this list I wanted to get you guys' opinion on. It's actually a land grab with guns. Despite the talk about supporting the Hammond family in Burns, Oregon, the takeover of the Mohier National Wildlife Refuge headquarters is actually part of a long-standing campaign by radical right-wingers to dismantle federal land ownership in the West. Some elected officials are working through mainstream channels to get lands transferred to state or county governments or to allow them to equal say over their use. But the Mohier takeover seems to be an attempt to spread a tactic of armed federal land takeovers. These armed groups are part of the Patriot movement, the successor of the 1990s militia movement, which has seen a rebirth since the election of Barack Obama in 2008. Kyle, how's about you take this first? Get your take on it.
Sure. I love the revisionist history that various authoritarians will take up in order to push whatever their tyrannical agenda of the week happens to be. And I think what you just read is pretty much evidence of that. I mean, come on. In Nevada, approximately 85% of the entire land is actually not owned by either private property owners or the Nevada government, but in fact the federal government. In Oregon, which is what we're talking about here tonight, federal government owns approximately 53% of the land. So this claim that, we're, transferring the land to the different state governments or whatever else that's just excuses for reformism. I think anyone who really understands how this kind of thing works is that's what's going on here. And accusing the Patriots of doing armed land grabs, it's like, well, that's interesting because I remember from actual history the federal government doing actual land grabs whenever they would persecute the original inhabitants of this particular continent and not keeping their end of the treaties and so forth. So, I would suggest everyone really look back in history in terms of who's really doing the land grabs here.
Where my Navajo at?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, Shane, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, my thoughts are pretty much exactly the same as Kyle's. You look at the percentage of land in some of these western states that are owned by the federal government. How long is it? Like, they're working through mainstream channels. How long is it going to take? Is the federal government going to obtain 100% land control over Nevada before the reformism takes effect? No, I think that's just an excuse. It's just an excuse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's before we start even talking about Agenda 21 and more long-term plans. I mean, even just more short-term. I mean, that's an excellent point Shane just brought up. What is the time frame here for the changeover? But notice, I don't think your article or anywhere else has really mentioned, Louis, about what the time frame is for the supposed changeover.
All right. In fact, you guys mentioned Agenda 21. Brings us to number 2 on this list. The paramilitaries are powered by conspiracy theories. Agenda 21 was denounced in at least one sign at the march in Burns that preceded the takeover. Agenda 21 is a non-binding UN resolution recommending sustainable ecological development, but it's been turned into conspiracy theory by the right, which sees a sinister global socialist agenda in things as small as building a local park. Patriot movement activists don't see what's happening to Dwight and Stephen Hammond as an unusual but unfair legal case. Instead, they are portraying it as part of a socialist agenda to seize rural private land and drive predominantly white farmers into the cities. There, they believe the government will detain white ring activists, seize privately held guns, turn the cities into concentration camps, and allow the UN or China to invade.
Well, I mean, that's rather interesting that they claim that Agenda 21 is basically a non-binding UN resolution. Well, if that's the case, what about the Kyoto Protocol?
What is the Kyoto Protocol?
It was. I thought it could have sworn it was a non-binding UN resolution from years back. Anyone who would bother checking Wikipedia can pretty much learn more details as far as that goes. Mm-hmm. Whether it's the Kyoto Protocol, whether it's actually probably most recently in light of the supposed terrorist attacks in Paris, there was also the Paris Agreement, which was about the so-called climate change phenomenon and so forth. I mean, is that also the Paris Agreement, a non-binding UN resolution? I mean, come on, does the difference really matter anymore? Seriously, they're trying to push for a global carbon tax for years as the basis for an emerging global government. And by the way, for people who don't like government for good or bad reasons, think about that. Go from a situation of these different nation states waging these imperialistic wars of aggression against each other, many of which are unconstitutional, if not all of them, to a global government state. So a world state, as it were, much like in certain dystopic novels like Brave New World, from which there is no escape unless you can, of course, escape the planet, which unfortunately the technology is not available for that right now as far as I'm aware of. But yeah, notice that. Non-binding UN resolution. Okay, well, if that's not binding, Agenda 121 is not binding, what about all these other documents? What about some of the Louis, you might remember this one, but oh god, it was the I'm forgetting the name right now, but what Lima Labau I think mentioned, it was the malnutrition thing that was supposed to maybe I shouldn't have brought it up, but it was like another non-binding UN resolution to basically restrict the importation of vitamins and minerals and such. So, somebody says it's a non-binding resolution. This is just horse crap.
Okay, to outlaw vitamins and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think you know what I mean, but yeah, the name's escaping me right now.
Yeah, me too.
But the point is that too is non-binding. So that's what I'm saying. So somebody's saying that Agenda 21 is not legitimate to talk about because it's a non-binding UN resolution. Well, so's all this other crap, all this authoritarian nonsense. And it's non-binding too, I suppose. So the difference being...
Codex Alimentarius, I think?
Yes, I was thinking of Codex. Yeah, so you've got Codex Alimentarius, you've got the Kyoto Protocol, you've got the Paris Agreement, you've also had some other stuff in between in time, and you have Agenda 21. All of it's non-binding anyway, so... But they're not going to bring up all that other stuff, are they?
Of course not. So, Shane, what's your take on this?
I mean, I've actually I did look into conspiracies before, but the one thing I've never looked into is Agenda 21 actually, which is kind of a surprise to some folks. But I remember an Alex Jones documentary. I don't remember which one it was, but he was going around to the various state parks and look and some of the United Nations signs that are actually on some of these parks. So yeah, I don't know a lot about Agenda 21. But that was definitely something peculiar, and I need to look into it a little more so I can speak to the subject with some actual knowledge on it.
Alrighty then. So let's get to the next part, number 3. The Patriot movement is a child of the white power movement. Many of the tactics and talking points being used were popularized in the 1970s by the white supremacist group Posse Comitatus. This group promoted the Christian Patriot movement, advocated the formation of citizen militias, helped forge the idiosyncratic reading of the Constitution, said the county sheriffs was the highest elected official that should be obeyed, and opposed federal environmental restrictions. Over the years, these ideas took on a life of their own, even though few of the activists using these ideas today are ideological right supremacists. For example, they will try to recruit county sheriffs. The sheriff in Harney County, where Burns is located, was asked to provide sanctuary for the Hammonds from the federal government. He refused. Activists such as Cliven Bundy's son, Ammon Bundy, who's leading the Moher occupation, claim that what is happening to the Hammonds is unconstitutional. The view of the Constitution is based on a position promoted by Posse Comitatus. They held that this Constitution could be interpreted by individual white-ring activists in a way that allowed them to have more jurisdiction than federal courts do. The Sovereign Citizens are the best known movement that promotes these crank legal theories today. For example, Pete Santilli, who live streamed the Burns March and went to the Moher takeover, promotes these ideas. And the reason why I'm laughing when they mention Pete Santilli, because before the show, we were talking about him, how he was going to cover this subject, but apparently he got spooked because he believes the FBI is after him. And so, you know, he wanted one of you guys mentioned that he wanted 100,000 activists to show up with flowers, and someone made the comment that he should be passing out condoms to because he's fucking everybody. And I made the joke, how does Pete Santilli take off a condom? He farts.
Awesome.
So anyways, so what do you guys think about this? Of course, like, and I've seen this everywhere. In fact, to go along with this, oh, if these guys were black, they would be dead by now. If they were black or Arab, they'd be dead by now. So, Shane.
All right, and that's kind of I was talking to a colleague about that earlier today or yesterday.
Yeah.
But the difference between they're pushing that Black Lives Matter narrative, and the difference between that and what's going on in Oregon is there's actual outright looting and rioting, and like the streets were like blocked off, which was blocking the freedom to travel, obviously. And what's going on in Oregon is it's not that. Yeah, some of them have guns, and that'll send these liberals into a little pissy fit because they don't like guns. But I guess there's one other point I'd like to make, and with the points you've read so far, you can just see the outright statism. You can see the outright love for the federal government. And anytime there's a mention of like local county sheriffs or state or local governments, like returning the power back to, I would say what the Constitution was intended to do. Debatably, but we'll go with that. They hate that idea. These people love big government, and anytime an action like this is taken that threatens their god, the state, they go into a little pissy fit, which is along with most of the other stuff that they do.
Okay, Kyle, take it.
Sure. This is just kind of silly. I think that's kind of obvious. I mean, that hashtag Oregon under attack is it's really just kind of silly. I mean, if you want to talk about something being under attack, I think Shane's website says it quite accurately. It's liberty under attack, which is a lot more accurate thing to say. So, but nobody was saying Ferguson was under attack, or Baltimore was under attack, or any of these other cities where there was actual rioting and looting, like Shane was just mentioning a moment ago.
And of course, the Black Lives Matter activists, well, in Ferguson, they were saying burn this motherfucker down. I mean, they were calling for they actually destroyed businesses.
Yeah,
their own businesses.
And not only that, but also right here in Austin, capital of Texas, these, I'll call them what I think of them, these degenerates were waltzing around the streets of where I live and armed with rifles and basically threatening to murder people. So, yeah, I think the degenerates really need to appreciate how a lot of us really do value self-defense. And I'll just say right here publicly, I think for some of them, they were rather lucky to go home when they did. So, no, this is Texas. We don't put up with violations of the NAP, or at least we shouldn't. I mean, this is just wrong. You know, you use initiatory force, you use coercion, you deserve everything that comes back to you. And that's a very libertarian thing to say. We abide by the non-aggression principle, okay? Self-defense only. But yeah, if these Black Lives Matter protesters or these other schmucks, I don't care whether they're from the government or not, if they want to engage in criminal actions, they're going to be sent back with their tail tucked between their legs, if not more so.
Yeah, what do you think? Well, I mean, we're going a little off topic, but I just wanted to bring this up because there was talk during the whole Baltimore thing of militia guys walking the streets with rifles. And
I don't know about that particular report, but if that did turn out to be true, I'm not surprised at all. You got a bunch of degenerates running around, busting in windows, stealing private property and such. I mean, if you were there, what the hell would you do?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be walking around with a rifle. Honestly, I would be at my property, ready to defend it there.
That's true.
One way of approaching it.
And we actually had Gary Hunt to discuss committees of safety and security teams this past Sunday, and militias were one thing that was brought up, and that's militias are kind of more of like a mutual aid thing. If something needs to be done in the committee, like if their city's being burnt to the ground, I think at least some of them would just take that, like they would take that as their home being destroyed. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if there were militia folks out there trying to defend businesses.
Right. Like, yeah, I mean, I would see that. I mean, if it's your business, it's your property, that someone, defend it. I just, it just seems unfair and very lazy to just knee-jerk accuse people of being racist because they happen to have certain tools, and that's what a gun is. A gun is a tool, even though it's been getting a lot of demonizing because of the stupid people that have used it wrong.
Sure, and also just as an historical note, during the so-called civil rights movement, there was a group of 4 Negro men they called themselves the Deacons for Defense, and all they were just 4 men with shotguns, and they were there to make sure that the KKK or other types of violent criminals, even including the cops in some cases in the South, did not molest Negro voters going to the polls. And shockingly enough, 4 men with shotguns, and there was no violence. Shocking how that happens. Deterrence and armed deterrence and all that, just like what happened at Bundy Ranch back in 2014. So that's something I think is rather interesting, is that notice the authoritarians are coming out of the woodwork and demonizing a bunch of people who, at least to my understanding, have not committed vandalism. They are not trashing the place. They haven't, I don't know about you, I can't find a victim anywhere. And yet, other people like this so-called CNN national security analyst, Juliette Kayyem, what kind of hell of a name is that? But anyway, Juliette Kayyem is outright saying that the folks at the wildlife refuge are terrorists, even though anyone who bothered understanding what the legal definition of terrorism is, there's all sorts of conditions have to be met, and I reviewed it just before coming on tonight, and I don't think, whether it's wise or not to do what they did is one question, but in terms of whether it legally constitutes terrorism, I'm not an attorney, I don't play one on TV, but just as a normal man, I don't see how it fits the definition. So there's an info war going on here regarding what the hell is even happening in Oregon right now.
So, so why are in your opinion, why are these guys not terrorists?
The reason that they're not terrorists is because they don't fit the definition. The most that you can... Look, I'm going to pretend to be the government for a moment, okay?
Okay.
If I was the government, I'm looking at these guys who probably are a bunch of nincompoops, probably. Even if they're, otherwise nice, well-meaning people.
We don't take kindly to that language on this show. Nincompoops is a very offensive word.
Okay. But the most that if I was the prosecutor or whatever, I would kind of look at this and like, well, probably smack them with trespassing, and of course also if you saw some of the newscasts, Louis, in the background, like behind Ammon Bundy or behind Jason Patrick, who are 2 of the guys there, you can see signs that say the refuge is basically open from sunrise to sunset, and of course they're camping out there when it's nighttime, and some of the interviews are at nighttime and so forth. So maybe slapping them with a little bit of a curfew violation that violates the refugees' rules, but that's about it. A curfew violation or at most trespassing, and that's about it. Now, of course, this is assuming the government's going to be fair and even-handed when it comes to dealing with the occupiers there, which of course is a huge assumption.
So so what do you think the government's going to do about these guys? I mean, because they can't just let them stay. They're going to have to take action.
Well, what I think is rather funny, Louis, is I'm sure you and Shane both remember Occupy Wall Street back in 2011, right?
Oh God.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but look at the don't think about the ideology or the rhetoric, even though a lot of it was socialist.
Yeah.
Just look at the method. What did they do at Zilker Park? What did they do at all these other locations?
They cleared them out. They had backhoes and whatever, and they...
No. I mean the protesters when they first were there.
Oh, they set up a television.
Well, yeah, there was that, but they basically plopped down and they camped out, right? There was a lot of tents and such. Mm-hmm. Well, in a sense, from what I can tell, these guys are doing the exact same thing as Occupy Wall Street, but did anybody call Occupy Wall Street a bunch of terrorists?
Mm.
You see the problem.
Yeah.
Look at the don't look at the rhetoric. Don't, they're grievance. Everybody's got problems, okay? Everybody's got grievances, and that's a whole separate discussion about how to gauge grievances. In fact, Shane had me on his broadcast one time to discuss what I think about how you can consider grievances and all that. But putting that aside, look at the method. Don't look at what they say. Look at what they do. And in terms of, are we talking about San Bernardino? Are we talking about people getting mowed down? Are we talking about these other suspiciously violent events? I can't find a victim. I can't find any bodies anywhere. Where's the crime? Show me the victim.
That's true. If I could step in real quick, I mean, obviously, I'm sure both of you have seen some of the rhetoric or some of the recommended action by some prominent figures within whether they be journalists or whether they be celebrities. No, just celebrities like Montel Williams, who are saying, send the National Guard out there with shoot to kill orders. I think with the mainstream reacting to this the way they are. Like even my Fascist Book newsfeed, for example, I've seen people post that have no idea about anything that's going on in the world. They're obviously still labeling it. They're labeling them as terrorists too. So I think, and I don't think this is likely to happen. But I think they could just go in and mow them all down. And I think most people would be okay with it because they're being labeled as terrorists. What I think is more likely to happen though is. The federal government, whether it be the FBI or local law enforcement, whoever it is, I'm guessing this would be their best strategy. Wait for the hype to die down, and then I would guess that they would just leave at a certain point. When you look at the time frame that this all has gone down, the first it was Indian Reservation Act in 1908. This has been going on for over 100 years. If they have to wait a year or two to snag that land or something. Or to regain control of that, 1 to 2 years. What's time to the government? Yeah, All
right, so let's get to the number 4 part of this.
Well, actually, Louis, would you mind if I just step in for just one moment on the terrorism question?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, just very briefly, Gary Hunt has written about this recently regarding another political prisoner who, of course, has not gotten any rallies or parades or whatever like the Hammonds. His name's Skylar Barbeau. And I've written in the past, even before the Skylar Barbeau case, about terrorism. So whether you're looking at Title 22 of United States Code or you're looking at Title 26 regarding, Title 18 regarding just, what is a terrorist and so forth, that's kind of interesting, and what counts as terrorism? Because here's the problem: that CNN article, that Kayem, whatever the hell her name is, the CNN national security analyst, look at all the expert, she's an expert. We're supposed to bow down and worship her like she's some god of the system, and take her word for it. She never defines her terms. She doesn't do any of that. And look, Title 26 USC subsection 2656F says that terrorism has to have 5 conditions. It has to be premeditated, it has to be politically motivated, there has to be violence, as in physical violence like stuff blowing up, people getting shot and so forth, destruction of property and lives lost, basically, injuries. It has to be directed against, the violence has to be directed against non-combatants. That's why I'm saying, well, look at the guys in Oregon. Can you find where the violence is directed against combatants? Again, I can't find a victim anywhere. And the violence has to be done by subnational or clandestine agents. Now, unless the federal government is really willing to claim that the guys in Oregon are subnational agents, that would be one hell of a trick to figure that out. But quite frankly, technically, premeditated, politically motivated violence against non-combatants by subnational or clandestine agents sounds a lot like the Black Ops Special Forces guys, doesn't it? Also, but if you go to Gary's article, which is, he uses a different definition, a more specific one, meaning domestic terrorism. This is cited at 18 U.S.C. Section 2331. Just very briefly, it says, the term domestic terrorism means activities that, A, involve acts dangerous to human life that are a violation of the criminal laws of the United States or of any state, B, appear to be intended, 1, to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, 2, to influence the policy of a government by intimidation or coercion. Okay, there's your fucking problem. How the hell can the guys at the wildlife refuge be said to be intimidating or coercing the civilian population, and specifically the inhabitants of Harney County, Oregon? Now, if Kayam, or whatever the hell her name is, can actually prove that, she's completely full of shit, even according to the federal government's own tyrannical laws. Does everybody understand that?
So
this is horse crap. This is the terror war and 9/11 all over again.
Well, they say that it's terrorism because they threatened to kill the federal employees that were in that building.
I would like to see some evidence of that.
Yeah, because there were no federal agents at that building. If I remember correctly, I think there was statements by maybe Amon Bundy, but don't quote me on that. But I think one of them said we're here to do it peacefully, but I don't want to mess this up. But it was something about resisting it if necessary. And if I may be an asshole real quick, Kyle, on that article you shared me with the CNN one, whatever her name is, Kayam, I'm going to be a real asshole. Yeah, they're violating Title IV flag code. So, because the flag's just draped over the sign. But anyways, continue, Louis.
Alrighty, so let's get to the next point here to talk about. And just wanted everyone to know, because I'm not full of shit. I had to take a call, and I just got booked for a show for the 27th. So more details coming soon. So anyways, back to this. Federal government policies have allowed this situation to happen. Although there is no written federal rule that is publicly known, those who study the radical right largely believe that the federal government has a policy not to directly confront armed right-wing groups. The disastrous handling of the Waco and Ruby Ridge sieges in the early 90s apparently convinced the feds to take a softer approach. This seemed to have paid off when the sovereign citizens at the Justice Township surrendered peacefully in 1996. But after 9/11, even as the feds have cracked down hard on all kinds of radical political activity, for example, many eco-saboteurs who never killed or injured anyone were sentenced under terrorism laws. The radical right has received almost a complete pass. The April 2014 standoff at Cliven Bundy's Nevada ranch, when Patriot movement activists came to aid of the radical right-wing rancher who refused to pay his fees for grazing on public land and trained rifles on federal agents, was taken as a green light for similar actions. The federal government has not prosecuted Cliven Bundy or his allies for anything that happened there. This has apparently convinced the Bundy family, 3 of whom reportedly are at Mulhere, that the feds will acquiesce to armed takeovers. And I just love how this article uses right wings as like how you would say Nazi. But who wants to go first?
I've just got two quick points, and I'll turn it over to Kyle. I'm wondering if this woman writes for the Southern Poverty Law Center, because the rhetoric is just identical. Like, how many times in that one or two paragraphs did she use the term radical right wing? That and also she mentioned Ruby Ridge and Waco. Well, Ruby Ridge was entrapment by the federal government, so. Yeah, and I think a baby was but the baby was killed too in that siege.
A baby and a mother.
Yeah, and then as far as Waco, Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what she's trying to allude to here, but yeah, a lot of SPLC rhetoric coming out of her, and I don't like it.
Well, the lady's statement is completely wrong when you look at the recent case, like I just mentioned a moment ago, about Skylar Barbeau. There is surveillance footage now available publicly where you can see the federal goons just traipsing throughout the property, lifting stuff. I mean, a lot of them are dressed in camis, so you can't even tell, separation between the military and the supposed civil power of the cops or whatever. You can't even tell the difference anymore, literally. So Skylar Barbeau, when the Ankh Ranch got invaded, and I guess Shane could back me up, or could try and remind me here in a moment just when exactly that happened. I thought it was a month or two ago. Mm-hmm. When that happened, thankfully the word got out about it, but it's still not very well known. So the claim that, because of skin color, therefore the government doesn't go after certain people, that doesn't explain Skylar Barbeau or any of the people that were involved with that. All those people are, whiter than some Irishmen, arguably. Mm. So the government still does raids. It still goes after people. There's all that police state stuff, kicking down the doors and all that. That still happens. That has not stopped, ladies and gentlemen. And claiming these authoritarians who on the one hand will claim that police brutality is wrong when it's done against, people of darker skin tones, suddenly, this is ridiculous. It's not even true.
Alrighty then. So, you want to get to the next point?
Yeah, let's do it.
Alrighty. Number 5, and this is the last one on the list. There is a widespread opposition to the Mohir takeover. The takeover's attempt is not popular with many in Oregon. When a convoy of Patriot Movement activists heading to Burns left from Bend, Oregon on Saturday, they were met with counter-protesters from the community. In Burns, many in the town have objected to the presence of the Bundy militia. The Patriot Movement groups are aware of this. A number of Patriot Movement activists denounced any support of the Hammonds beforehand. The Oath Keepers, a national group, refused to come to the march, saying the Hammonds had not asked for help. Furthermore, the group said that Oregon members who helped organize the protest would be reprimanded. And although details are not known, it appears that the vast majority of activists who are taking over Mohir are largely out-of-staters from Nevada and Arizona. While they hope to rally widespread support, that doesn't seem to be happening. Kyle?
I think that's more or less accurate to some degree, but I think there's also the issue of, and I guess Shane could kind of back me up on this to some degree in terms of facts and figures or whatever, but most of the people that live in Harney County, or at least some portion thereof, are reportedly employees of the federal government or their welfare recipients or whatever else. So I guess to some degree, there could be an argument that could reasonably be made about outsiders, making a stand against the feds or whatever, but also consider the people living there too. They're not exactly innocent in all of this either, and to pretend that the people that live there are somehow these poor, hapless souls is a false corporate media narrative. They're very much complicit in one way or another.
Yeah. It's either 46 or 48% of the citizens in Harney County are government employees. Yeah, that is correct. See, I thought there was one other point. In regards to the community, yeah, I have heard that the community does not like their presence there. But there was, I think it was CNN. CNN did an interview with some of the people that didn't like it, and there was one guy who was just like, yeah, I understand what they're doing, but I just don't like the fact that they have guns. So I think that might be the I don't know, I can't prove this, I don't have the evidence for it, but I would say more predominantly it's probably the fear of guns, not necessarily the action that's being taken is what the community doesn't like.
Yeah, actually I can back up Shane on that one. I was watching, so I managed to track back some of the footage that was taken of the march back on January 2nd. This was before the refuge was taken over, so-called. Because originally, remember, the people were originally... Sorry, let me just clear something out in case people don't understand this. the original purpose behind people going to Burns, Oregon, and Burns is in Harney County, the original reason was to have a protest, march, rally type thing, and like a bunch of people met in front of a Safeway at one point. Pete Santilli was doing the live stream on that one.
Taking off his condom.
Mm-hmm. And basically, that was kind of the purpose, was kind of to do some reformism here and there, and the so-called peaceful protest, whatever the hell that is. And that was kind of the whole point, a little bit of a masturbatory circle jerk, because that doesn't help the Hammonds at all one way or another, but that was kind of acceptable. That was the original purpose, was have a rally and a march and a protest and all of that. And also as a side note, something about throwing pennies in front of the Harney County Sheriff for some reason. That was interesting too. And that was on the local corporate media footage. But then it got morphed into this other thing, which was actually Pete Santilli himself described on his own live stream that it was a splinter group. That was the term he used, splinter group that went off to the refuge. And of course, the funny thing is that, anybody who bothered to go and double check this, look guys, whether you're reading the appellate ruling in U.S. versus Hammond, which was written by Judge Murphy, that was that was filed in February 7th of 2014, and then there were some press releases, only a few months ago. But I think some of the more revealing ones is that Ammon Bundy, who is touted as the leader or otherwise the figurehead, the spokesman, the grand poobah of the occupiers, he was releasing videos as recent, as a little far back, I guess you could say, last November. Now, actually, November 24th, 2015, to be specific. And then he did another one on December 29th. So there is this pattern of... So people who are kind of insinuating that their splinter group thing was with some kind of a sudden thing is false. This was pre-planned and pre-positioned well ahead of time. The Hammonds legal case has been dragging out for years. People have known about this for years. Mm-hmm. And it's only been recently with the issue, and really with the Hammonds, the real issue there is the mandatory minimum sentencing. I hope you folks understand, they've already been to jail. And now they're going back to jail. Actually, they went back. They actually reported for jail yesterday on January 4th. So they're back. They're back in the big house for a longer stretch. Let me put it that way. But this is mainly about mandatory minimum sentencing, as far as I can figure. And when I read the Judge Murphy's appellate ruling, basically, this is not a violation of the Eighth Amendment, or at least presumably not a violation of the Eighth Amendment, because the U.S. Supreme Court has put its foot down and supported California's three strikes laws and some other stuff too, where they're supporting sentences which are like decades upon decades for things like stealing 9 videotapes. So,
or stealing a pizza.
Or some other things. Well, 3 golf clubs was a different case that was also cited too in the appellate decision. So what I'm getting at, Louis, is this. The constitutionality of mandatory minimum sentencing has basically not really been broached all that well. And until such time people read that appellate decision in U.S. versus Hammond, which came out on February 7th of 2014, and then they read the court cases that were cited by Judge Murphy, and read those cases and try to figure out which legal precedent was used to, to support those sentences or whatever. I don't know. It could be on grounds of judicial review. It could be on grounds of constitutional avoidance. I don't know. I haven't had a chance to follow up on it. Mm-hmm. So this whole refuge thing and all that, I think a lot of it is misguided in some ways, because I think some people meant well, but it's kind of got garbled in the meantime in terms of like what this was all about and so forth. And, I think that's kind of what's happened, unfortunately.
And if I may step in real quick, Kyle brought up a good point there when it came to the first thing was the protest, and they went and took over that refuge. But there were conflicting goals. And anytime you have that for any, I guess, protest, it's most effective, if it's effective at all. It's most effective if there's one singular goal. There's some people that obviously the protest there wasn't, the protest in town was in support of the Hammonds. But as far as for the takeover of the refuge center, there are interviews people saying, well, and I think Ammon Bundy was one of these folks too, He's like, 100 ranchers have been pushed out of this area. It's time to stop federal government overreach. So there's people at the refuge who, one, are saying they're trying to quell federal overreach, and then there's other people there that are saying, well, we're here in support of the Hammonds. When the Hammonds stated that they didn't want a federal standoff and they didn't want defense. So I think that's kind of it. I think that's a major issue when it comes to this, as far as for their goals.
So not all these patriot groups are supporting this.
Let me put it this way. Do you remember Occupy Wall Street?
Yes.
It's exactly the same thing. Let me put it that way. Everything, I mean, look at the methodology. Like I said earlier, look at the fact that there's conflicting goals, like Shane just pointed out. They are following the Rastafarian socialist Occupy Wall Street blueprint like to a T.
That's and Louis, you brought up a good point. Yeah, there's some patriot groups. I think it was mentioned in that article where we're just discussing. But yeah, Stuart Rhodes actually released a press release, and let me actually pull that up and read that, because if Stuart Rhodes is going to say this, I think that's pretty crucial. And this came out on January 1st. Quote: "We cannot force ourselves or our protection on people who do not want it. Dwight and Stephen Hammond have made it clear through their attorney that they just want to turn themselves in and serve out their sentence. And that clear statement of their intent should be the end of the discussion on this. No patriot group or individual has the right or the authority to force an armed standoff on this family or around them against their wishes. You cannot help someone who does not want your help and who are not willing and ready to take a hard stand themselves." And just to continue with one more paragraph from this press release. Quote, I regret having to even make this statement, but I have no choice, since Amon Bundy has not made it sufficiently clear to the patriot community that the Hammond family has declined physical armed help and by all indications does not want any kind of armed standoff with the federal government, and they do not want anyone to attempt to protect Dwight and Stephen Hammond from being taken into federal custody on Monday, January 4th, 2016, when they are scheduled to turn themselves in to serve additional time for their felony convictions, which came after a jury found them guilty. They intend to voluntarily turn themselves in and serve out the remainder of their sentence under federal minimum sentencing statutes after losing in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals on the issue. In fact, they have made it very clear through a public statement by their lawyer and a letter to the sheriff dated December 11, 2015, that neither Amon Bundy nor anyone in his group or organization speaks for the Hammond family, Dwight Hammond or Stephen Hammond. In addition, I wish to report to you that as recently ordered by the District of Oregon, Dwight Hammond and Stephen Hammond intend to voluntarily report to the designated federal facility on January 4, 2016 as required, end quote. So yeah, I actually think Stuart Rhodes was correct on this one. You can't force protection on somebody that doesn't want it. So that kind of makes one of those intentions null and void. But as far as quelling federal overreach, that's still definitely on the table as far as an outcome.
Well, there you go. The Bundys put out a blog post. Do you guys want to talk about that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Are you referring to the report on the Hammond story?
Well, the one that was reposted at the conservative treehouse.
Okay. Yep. Let me see here. So I guess maybe it would be prudent to kind of discuss kind of what got them into this position as far as their sentencing. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to just jump forward. It's letter I in the article if anyone's looking at it. But these are the two instances of why they're being tossed in a government dungeon. Quote, in the early fall of 2001, Stephen Hammond called the fire department, informing them that he was going to be performing a routine prescribed burn on their ranch. Later that day, he started a prescribed fire on their private property. The fire went onto public land and burned 127 acres of grass. The Hammonds put the fire out themselves. There was no communication about the burn from the federal government to the Hammonds at that time. Prescribed fires are a common method that Native Americans and ranchers have used in the area to increase the health and productivity of the land for many centuries. And I guess I should have prefaced this before, but yeah, this came originally from the Bundy blog, as you mentioned. But I have some issues with this because they're making claims, but they don't put any sources or links in there, and they don't actually link to the government documents on this page, the court documents. which they should have done. Ammon Bundy had the court documents. He showed them in a video. So yeah, there's no links or citations in this. So I do have to put forth that disclaimer because it is possible that it's not all factually correct, just because there's no way there's no really way to follow up on it from the article itself without further research. So yeah, they did their prescribed fire in 2001. They called the fire department and let them know. Then up to 2006, a massive lightning storm started multiple fires that joined together, inflaming the countryside. To prevent the fire from destroying their winter range and possibly their home, Stephen Hammond, the son, started a backfire on their private property. The backfire saved much of the range and vegetation needed to feed the cattle throughout the winter. The next day, federal agents went to the Harney County Sheriff's Office and filed a police report making accusations against Dwight and Stephen Hammond for starting the backfire. And for those who don't know, a backfire, I'm not really exactly sure what it is, but I'll go from Stefan Molyneux had a video on it. But you kind of put up a wall with a fire to try to prevent it from coming any further. That's the best understanding I have of it. Quote, the Harney County District Attorney reviewed the accusation, evidence, and charges and determined that the accusations against Dwight and Stephen Hammond did not warrant prosecution and dropped all the charges. Now, here's where it gets really, really interesting. So in 2011, 5 years after the police report was taken, the U.S. Attorney Office accused Dwight and Stephen Hammond of completely different charges. They accused them of being terrorists under the Federal Anti-Terrorism Effective Death Penalty Act of 1996. This act carries a minimum sentence of 5 years in prison and a maximum sentence of death. So 5 years after the initial police report, they come back and label them terrorists under that aforementioned bill. So, yeah, definitely interesting. But let's see here. I'll skip forward just a little bit here. In September 2006, Dwight and Susan Hammond's home was raided. The agents informed the Hammonds that they were looking for evidence that would connect them to the fires. Stephen Hammond openly maintains his testimony that he started the backfire to save the winter grass from being destroyed, and that the backfire ended up working so well it put out the fire entirely altogether. And Stefan Molyneux made the claim. I haven't had a chance to look at this. I don't think we have this actual court document yet, but it actually there was statements from the I think it was the federal government, whether it was the Fish and Wildlife Service or the Bureau of Land Management, that it actually increased the value of the property, the federal property. So that's just a nice little tidbit there.
That's hilarious.
It is. It really is.
That would be like, and you know, we all know it was 9/11 was an inside job, but it would be like them flying the planes into the World Trade Center, and now it's worth $2 billion a floor.
So something like that, yeah. And Molyneux put forth a kind of a metaphor. It's like if a tree falls on your house, and someone else comes and removes the tree, and then fixes your roof, which would obviously increase the value of your property if you don't have a hole in your roof. That can get you felony charges. So that's kind of what he put forth. I'm not sure if that's the best way to explain it, but it's the best one I can think of off the top of my head. But just a little bit here left to just put some context, provide some context for your listeners. The next part of this article is just going through the judicial corruption. Obviously, the cards were stacked against them already, but obviously the judicial system does not play fair. So if they want to find more out about that, they can go to the conservative treehouse and read that part for themselves. But moving down to point Q, June 22nd, 2012, Dwight and Stephen were found guilty of starting both the 2001 and the 2006 fires by the jury. However, the federal courts convict them both as terrorists under the 1996 Anti-Terrorism Act. Judge Hogan sends Dwight the father to 3 months in prison and Stephen the son to 12 months in federal prison. They were also stipulated to pay the BLM $400,000. $400,000. It's a lot of money. But it gets more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I made this point when I was talking to you, Shane. It's like, okay, I would understand if the federal government demanded restitution to repair the damage that was done to their land. But coming back and you said it took them 5 years for them to come back charge them with terrorism.
True, correct, and it's kind of funny too. And this was the initial Judge Hogan. I remember which document it was in, but he was the one that was kind of like, 5 years is not proportional. Like the proportionality is kind of screwed up here. Like 5 years in prison for this. No, I'm going to give them these sentences. But yeah, it was kind of interesting. He was because they were trying to get him with $1,000 or more cost of damage to property, to federal property, and the judge was like, "This is probably more like $100. Like these are shrubs and brushes. This is shrubs and brush. So like, there's no way for them to pay okay, they could have made him pay a fine, and kind of left it at that. But the judge even was like, this is like $100 worth of damage, and plus it increased the he didn't say this, but like they stated that it increased the value of the property. So I mean that's kind of yeah, I'm not sure, but. But yeah, there's really not a whole lot of restitution they could do. They couldn't. I guess they could have gone out and planted new shrubs, but I'm not sure if that would.
Well, I mean, I would like you said, like they were fined $400,000.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
I mean, that should have been the extent of it. Like I would understand if if they decided to take planes and crash them into federal buildings, then yeah, okay, terrorism.
Correct,
but if they were like, oh shit, we set this other place and we put it out ourselves. All right, here's the bill to repair burnt dirt, even though you pretty much made our land a lot better, or you made improvements, increased the value. It really seems like more government waste. Like, what did these people do? Like, they didn't continue burning; they put it out. It sounds like a mistake.
Yeah, exactly.
It sounds like it sounds like an accident. Like, what terrorist would you say? Would you get? Oh, and again, I know bullshit, but it'd be like Hamas, going in and suicide bombing an Israeli shopping mart, and then coming in and trying to fix the holes. That sucks. That was a sucky analogy.
Well, yeah, the point is that it's weird and contradictory, isn't it? And I think that's kind of what's going on here.
Yeah, definitely. But let me see if there's anything else. Oh yeah, we haven't got to the appeal yet. But yeah, on January 4th, 2013, the same date that they, I just noticed this now, but yeah, 2 years apart, the same exact day was when they were supposed to report to prison. But January 4th, 2013, they reported to prison, they fulfilled their sentences. Dwight was released in March 2013, and Stephen in January 2014. And sometime in June 2014, Rhonda Cargase, field manager for the BLM, and her husband, Chad Cargase, refuge manager for the Malheur Wildlife Refuge, which surrounds the Hammond Ranch, along with attorney Frank Papagni, exemplifying further vindictive behavior by filing an appeal with the 9th District Federal Court seeking Dwight's and Stephen's return to federal prison for the entire 5 years. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. So yeah, in October 2015, the 9th District Court resentenced Dwight and Stephen, requiring them to return to prison for several more years. And there's kind of a nexus here. So the president and the vice president of the company are going to be serving 5 years in prison. And they're calling that, it's been called a death sentence for Dwight, considering he's 74 years old. And I'm not sure how involved the wives were and the children were in the ranch, but I'm pretty sure that the business was actually operated by the parent, or by the father and the son. So I'm not sure if they'll be able to continue to actually work the ranch. And plus, on top of it, they have $200,000. Actually, no. Let me just back up here. I kind of skipped over this, but actually, no. That's actually down there. To date, they have paid $200,000 to the BLM, and the remainder $200,000 must be paid before the end of this year, 2015. So they should have already paid the other $200,000 to the BLM. And this is where it gets interesting, too. If the Hammonds cannot pay the fines to the BLM, they'll be forced to sell the ranch to the BLM or face further prosecution. So that's a lot of money. I'm not sure if they're just going to sell the ranch or not, but they have to sell it to the BLM. So they're going to acquire that land anyways, whether it's now or whether it's in a year or whenever it is. But yeah, that kind of concludes it. Yeah. So that's what happened to them. That's what happened to them, and the BLM's going to acquire that land too.
Yeah. We got Christy Aphrodite. She comments, they can be feeding the homeless with all the money they've wasted. And of course Glenn Z, he goes, Negroes, calling, I guess, I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Well,
there's a lot of things they could do with that money.
Well, yeah, and regarding the food issue, I mean, I've written about freeganism and dumpster diving before, but yeah, there are millions of pounds, a little bit of a different subject for another time, but in short here, there are millions of pounds of food, edible food in dumpsters that are just getting wasted. So, this country is, for all of its good and bad points, it actually has a lot of edible food, especially in the colder climes that are just being discarded. So the point, I think what Aphrodite was kind of getting at is that there's a lot of waste going on. And unfortunately, this is what happens when you have, when people are tolerating the state. This is what happens when people are bowing down and worshiping Leviathan. This is what happens. So you want liberty, you want freedom. Well, you can't allow this to go on, and you have to take a stand and stop it one way or another.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Let's see. What else? So now, as far as actions being taken to prevent prosecution.
You mean prosecution of the Hammonds?
It's your outline.
Well, the prosecution's already happened, and they actually turned themselves in today for just to fulfill the 5-year sentence. There was actually a kind of a concern raised within, because they didn't read the court documents, obviously, because they weren't made available by the Bundys or the Conservative Treehouse, but they weren't sure if the 12 months and 3 months that they already served would be reduced from the 5 years, and they are going to be reduced from the 5 years, but still that's a lot of time in prison for simply burning 127 acres of BLM property, or Fish and Wildlife Service property, out of the, and this is another point Molyneux made, 127 acres out of the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of acres that they have. So that's a very, very minuscule amount.
Yeah, and Shane, I think that was something good you brought up regarding the court documents and all that. I mean, it's really kind of funny, some of these guys, corporate media especially, but even unfortunately some of our friendly competition and the rest of the alternative media, or even the bunnies themselves to some degree with the lack of citations and so forth. Like, Shane and I just started working on this today in preparation for tonight, and he and I were able to dig up as much as we have. There's actually more, but this is, if people are serious about finding out the truth about anything, whether it's current events or things more of a historical nature because it happened a while back, it's actually possible to use that newfangled thing called your computer and the internet. It's not that hard, but unfortunately some people are not exactly computer illiterate or whatever the other issues are. And in fact, in a lot of ways, this kind of reminds me of, actually, Shane, I think you wrote about this in that article of yours about Charles Dyer.
Oh yeah. There's the very, very difficult situation of obtaining the court documents, and there's also one other thing too in regards to that. One of the documents that was made available, and I had a major issue with this with the Dyer case that I tried to work on months ago, but. These people, and it even happened with this case too. They'll take an official government document, but instead of scanning it so it's actually relevant and an actual court document, they'll open up a Word document and just type it into it, and then post it as if it's a government document. The same issues with the Hammonds case. It wasn't very well managed as far as I can see. With the hard to find all the court documents. With this being a 10-year affair, I'm sure there's more court documents than just 6 or 7 like we have, Kyle.
Yeah, and not only that, but also I think I alluded to this earlier. The one video that Ammon Bundy did back in November of last year in 2015, he literally, this is kind of ironic, he literally showed a stack of documents where he's kind of almost like an Alex Jones type of thing. I have the documents. Well, similarly, Ammon Bundy said, well, here are all the court documents, and he shows it in front of the camera, but of course, because it's a couple feet away, you can't actually read a damn thing. And it's not hyperlinked into the text box for on YouTube or wherever else. It's not it's not on the Bundy Ranch's own blog on Blogger. It's not anywhere. So yes, they have the documents, but you can't see them. And so I think what Shane and I are kind of getting at here, Louis, is that there is a very, very serious problem, regardless of whatever the specific case study is, that there is a lack of judicial transparency. And what I would like to see personally is if the alternative media were getting really serious about transparency in government, they should focus less on the sensationalistic nonsense with these police cop blocking videos, and instead get those cameras, and more importantly, in some ways, get the court documents for these various political prisoners.
That is true, and if I may make one point here, with the documents that we have acquired thus far, I'm going to set up a new political prisoners archive for the Hammonds, and if anyone out there that's listening to this has any documents, official court documents, I don't want fucking Word documents that are just typed up. If there are any official government documents that you have in regards to this case, please send them to me, Shane@libertyunderattack.com, because I want to actually, the transparency has not been there, so I'll do the same thing as I have done with, 10 other political prisoners of providing the actual court documents in easy downloadable form. So yeah, get me the court documents if you have, if any of your listeners have any.
Yeah. Glenn Z in the chat room, he says, I was in court today to serve my first jury duty, and they almost picked me for the case, but I was too smart. Man, the system is so crooked, and these lawyers are hungry sharks. I got to see the American political process today up close and personal. Yuck. These judges and lawyers both laughed in concert together when I said, no further questions at this time, Your Honor. When he asked me if I understood everything that had been read to me, LOL, they appreciated the irony of someone being well versed enough in their own language enough to make a joke out of it. I gave them a legally linguistic lashing. They were all like, you could go home now, lawyer boy. And I got dismissed for being a juror.
Oh man, yeah, I actually was summoned to serve on a jury for the week of May 10th, and so yeah, I definitely share his sentiments. Yeah, it's definitely a corrupt system. I was actually chosen, though. I'm not quite sure why. I guess I could have bombed it during voir dire, but yeah, I was selected, and yeah, just with the same as with the Hammond case, the punishment did not fit the crime. So yeah, I definitely share his sentiments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also speaking about juries, I mean, notice too that in the Hammond case, they were convicted by a jury. So the jury, I debated a guy recently publicly regarding the efficacy of jury nullification. And, that was rather interesting for various reasons. That was almost a discussion in and of itself for another time, perhaps. But one thing I would like to point out now is that notice that the jury in the Hammond case did not nullify the unjust laws that they were being charged with. So the jury was in a position, all these patriots, all these, even libertarians, oh, well, you can nullify unjust law, just pamphleteer outside the courthouses, and that will magically restore liberty somehow, somewhere, someday, somewhere out there. Bye. It's about that bad. And notice they were in a position to actually do something good, and the jury, what did the jury do? Oh, wait, that's right, they convicted them. So if you want to blame anybody for the tyranny of government and the big bad federal government doing whatever and whatnot, what about these jurors that convicted them? Mm-hmm. They could have stopped this. Technically, if we're talking about legal procedure and working inside of the system and making all sorts of deals and concessions and compromises, the jury could have arguably stopped this. But what did they do? Did they nullify? No, they convicted. That's rather important.
Yeah, well, because
go ahead, Louis.
Yeah, they'll always listen to their daddy, which is Uncle Sam. I mean, it's like these goddamn liberals here in New York. It's they'll scream and cry about police corruption, but who they want to vote for? They want to vote for someone that's going to give them free shit without knowing, or without even caring about the strings attached to it.
Yeah, that's and the economic ramifications as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, in regards to the Hammond case with the juries, I kind of skipped over this part, but there was just like there's one point like I mentioned earlier, the hand was stacked against them already, but with judicial proceedings, it was stacked against them tenfold, I would say. One point though that I do want to make in regards to the juries was they were forced to drive 180 miles every single day to serve on that jury. Mm-hmm. So by the end of the 6 days, they're just like, fuck it, I'm done. Like I'm ready to go home. I'm exhausted. Yeah. I don't want to be sitting in court any longer. Just convict. Just screw it.
Yeah, and actually, guys, that's a lot more common than people would admit to. That happened during the Kate Auger case up in New Hampshire. Supposedly that happened during the Trespass of 3 case. Also, Rich Paul's case, all of those happened up in New Hampshire. So even the people that promote jury nullification, they know better. But they don't ever want to, except for the one time, they otherwise don't want to debate people like me about it regarding the efficacy and whether we can really secure liberty by nullifying unjust laws and getting the potheads and other people who are getting charged with these victimless crimes, preventing them from going to jail, and maybe, just maybe, start the very, very slow legal, or at least it would be an actual consequence of emptying out the jails once the convicts start serving out their sentences and they actually fulfill those sentences and they get out. Prisoners, there's no more new prisoners to go in because the brave libertarians have used jury nullification to prevent more people getting convicted. But that isn't happening, is it? Those prisons are still pretty overcrowded, right? Right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of the problem here. And I find it rather ironic that even when discussing this in good faith, the celebritarians, the self-appointed gatekeepers of the status quo, ridicule people such as myself and others for being willing to discuss libertarian tactics and strategy. And I'll say it before and I'll say it again, gentlemen. We should be able to publicly discuss libertarian tactics and strategy in good faith without people accusing each other of issuing orders or something. I mean, this is hyperbolic nonsense. So with regard to the Hammonds, they were convicted by a jury. That's kind of a problem.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Louis, have you heard of a gentleman named John Ritzheimer?
I believe in our conversations, but I am not too sure who he is.
Oh, Louis, when you had me on last time, he was the guy I openly challenged to a debate about the Muslim question, whether Muslims are a threat to American liberty.
So he's an important factor in this entire thing. And Kyle, you're more well versed on Ritzheimer than I am. You've watched a lot more of his videos and such. But yeah, Louis, if you'd be okay with that, since Ritzheimer is one of the main players in the Hammond case, if we could kind of get him figure out what he's been doing.
Well, name names. Go ahead.
You want to go for that, Kyle?
Well, sure. I mean, this is rather interesting. Something that I think that's been kind of mentioned in passing, but it's worth repeating one more time. Consider all these other political prisoners.
Well,
where the hell is? Hold on, I'm getting to Ritzheimer.
Let me interrupt you before you continue. I have a lot of people that are not politically aware. So if you could, when explaining this, explain it as if you're talking to someone, in which you pretty much might, someone that doesn't know, why is this Ritzheimer important and why should people care?
Okay, sure. Well, Ritzheimer specifically, he was the guy that, following the shootout in Garland, Texas, that was, of course, the issue with the Draw Muhammad contest. He was the guy that led the protest there in Arizona. Mm-hmm. And he has since become very popular regarding, what you had me on last time, the neocon infiltration of the Patriot movement. He is let me put it this way, his popularity is much, I think I may have said this before when you had me on before, his popularity is much like what Charles Dyer used to be, where he's like the main figurehead. He's their Ron Paul, okay? Ritzheimer is actually rather significant. And basically, he's been saying that, them muzzies, which is a common slur. I haven't heard him use that particular term. But basically, them muzzies are a problem, and we Americans have to deal with them, the problem. The problem of Islam is a threat to American liberty, and all this kind of neocon rhetoric, much like you would hear from Pamela Geller or Brigitte Gabrielle. And this is also the same guy who got very famous for also shooting Qurans on video with his guns. putting hold. I mean, he shot one with his pistol. He shot another in a different video. He used his rifle. So he doesn't actually get upset about actual real grievances. He never gets upset about dragnet wiretapping. He doesn't get upset about civil asset forfeiture. He doesn't get upset about any of the stuff that, libertarians and even patriots would, give a damn about. He's just upset about the Muslim problem as he would see it. So now you look at this situation, which thankfully I can't see a Muslim in Oregon as far as or at least in Harney County, so I don't think that's on the table, thankfully. But, he's doing this, 15-minute or so crying video in his truck where he's basically kind of implying he's going off to die.
Yeah, I've seen that video. In fact, a lot of people were making fun of that. So that's
Well, remember, and I guess Shane could probably help back me up as far as like facts, dates, and statistics go or whatever, but not too long ago, he was getting, the FBI called him when he was on like a cross-country road trip or something, and he was saying that, me and my buddy, we're going to visit like different mosques and take pictures, selfies of ourselves in front of these mosques, and if Muslims want to, shoot us, and then he like grabs a pistol and cocks and locks it in front of the camera or something. And the next thing, like, different cops are, like, calling his cell phone, and then at some point he has to go dark in order to not get in trouble with the cops and, like, not use his debit card. So Ritzheimer has this very colorful history regarding being on the forefront, the poster boy for the Patriot movement being, anti-Islamic for whatever reason. Oh, and by the way, he was even on the Pete Santilli show not too long ago, and he was saying, then Muslims are a problem, and Santilli's kind of nodding his head and acquiescing to all of this. Ritzheimer, as a side note, also said that Brigitte Gabrielle is a patriot, and she's a notorious neocon, warmonger extraordinaire. I don't think you can find a better one than her unless you're talking about Donald Rumsfeld. It's that bad. So there is very much a neocon infiltration of the Patriot movement, and so when this situation happened in Harney County, now you have Ritzheimer, the established poster boy for all of the anti-Muslim diatribes. He's now kind of crying, and I love you, honey, and I'm going to go off and die, implied, and so forth. That's where this kind of narrative is going. So,
you should grow up with a father. I'm not going to be there for you Christmas or New Year's, but I fulfilled an oath.
Yeah, but of course, what he's not telling you in that video is that he wants the Muslim problem, as he would see it, to be dealt with. And assuming he doesn't. And by the way, let me just repeat one more time. If he doesn't get killed or incarcerated because of this, I would still like to have him debate me about Islam. If he survives this, but that's kind of the short rundown on Ritzheimer as far as I'm aware of. He's basically an opportunist. I really don't see that much of a difference between him and Santilli or Blaine Cooper or Jason Patrick or any of these self-avowed guys who think they're all that. They're defending the Constitution, they're defending the American Republic, and all of this kind of rhetoric that really has little, if anything, to do with the principles of liberty. I don't see them talking about the non-aggression principle. Not one word has been mentioned about self-ownership. They might as well be as economically illiterate as Hillary Clinton, as far as I'm concerned. So, in terms of like what all this is about and Ritzheimer's background, there is something not cool here. And by the way, even Alex Ansari, even he has said that he thinks this is a frame-up. And even Montegraph has thought. So there's other people in the alternative media who are thankfully speaking truth to power and saying something is really kind of screwed up happening here, especially in terms of the players involved. So I hope that provide a little bit of a brief background about Ritzheimer. He basically wants the Muslim problem to be dealt with, whether that means the Donald Trump plan of registering them, whether that means mass deportation, whether that means any one of a number of things, hell, maybe even democide. I don't know. The problem with the anti-Muslim diatribes is that they're all very vague, kind of like a lot of a statist rhetoric. It's all very vague, and try to pin them down on anything is like dealing with a used car salesman. They're all very slippery. Good luck trying to get them to admit to anything and have an honest, intellectual conversation that is done in good faith to try and figure out the truth of whatever we're dealing with. So I hope that answers the question about Ritzheimer.
Yeah, it really sounds like John Ritzheimer is kind of, and I know you said this before, he's like a government-controlled Charles Dyer.
I wouldn't even go so far and say that, because let's stick to the evidence, gentlemen, and what the evidence says. The evidence basically shows he's a useful idiot. He's praising Brigitte Gabrielle like he did on the Pizza and Tilly show, like I mentioned a moment ago, and so forth. Mm-hmm. That is what the evidence suggests. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know why he's basically claiming he's basically going to go and be a martyr, which is really funny because he doesn't like, Islamic terrorists, which are all about, martyrdom, right? So there's the little joke right there. But look, let's not make this about Ritzheimer alone. There's other players involved. And it's very interesting to note that they picked, right after the holidays for this to go down, even though the Hammond legal situation, as Shane was pointing out just a moment ago, has been going on for the better part of a decade plus, or thereabouts.
Something like that.
It's really been kind of dragged out. So, Ritzheimer, he's traveling across the country. He's spending all sorts of money. And at one point he was hiding out, but then he's not hiding out, but then maybe he was hiding out. It doesn't really matter really what it is. And, oh, by the way, one thing I would like to point out in passing, there was that press conference that happened yesterday that was at the refuge. There was a lady by the name of Miss Cox, and she was introduced by Ammon Bundy. And at one point she said something, let me try and remember this exactly. She was reading a list of grievances or something, and she said, notice to agent is notice to principal is notice to agent. Now, for anybody who remembers anything, that phrase is actually rather important. 5 guesses where that comes from.
Sovereign citizens.
Yup. So there's some really wacky, not good stuff involved here. And in fact, especially one other example, Shane, you kind of alluded to this earlier, but the issues about the flag. I'm sure you saw some of the flag waving that was going on during the so-called Operation Hammond Freedom.
Yeah, that's true. And there was actually it was kind of interesting. A guy named David on my Facebook posted this, and it was the day of the protest, huh?
Shout out to David.
Yep, shout out to David. I'm not sure if he's listening, but if he is, he knows who he is once I read this. Yep. Once I read the status. But quote, I see photos of confused individuals taking a stand against government tyranny while waving the flag of their oppressor. Too weird for words. End quote. And I agree with him. Now, if they were just waving Gadsden flags, that'd be a different story. But I wrote an article a while back. I think it was in May. It was in May, and I kind of ran through. And this is the American flag that we have today. There's all of the terrible shit that it's just bathed in: imperialism, socialism, communism, democide, a bunch of really really terrible things. So yeah, I definitely agree with Mr. David on that one. Wave Gadsden's. Why are you waving the flag of your oppressor?
Yeah, and actually, Shane, my favorite was the follow-up article you wrote to that, which was about all the violations of Title IV flag code.
Okay, yeah, that's true. And as I mentioned in that CNN article that she referenced, Kyle, yeah, the very first the very first scene you see is the American flag draped over the sign, which actually is a violation of flag code. And a person who put that there, if this was enforced, would face 30 days in jail and or a $100 fine. If it was enforced. But yeah, it's there's definitely some hypocrisy there. Yeah.
So this is just further shenanigans going on within the Patriot movement that really shouldn't be going on.
Well, I mean, with the Title IV flag code stuff, we've all I'll say this collectively, just because I'm pretty sure that this is true, unless you grew up in a really, really anti-political libertarian household. We've probably all worn a piece of clothing with the American flag on it. I'm pretty sure, or any article of clothing.
A pin.
A pen? I'm not sure. I think a pen's actually fine. I think that's actually fine when it comes to flag code. But yeah, if any time, if you've ever worn a shirt with an American flag on it, or worn some sweatpants with the American flag on it, or some socks, or whatever it may be,
or a skirt, thong,
skirt, bikini. Yeah, thong, even, yeah.
Slingshot.
Yeah, it's a violation of Title IV flag code. Yeah. I mean, and no one's really aware of that. I cover obscure things, but yeah, that is I don't know. They say that you always hear well, I'm a law-abiding, tax-paying citizen. You hear that phrase quite often, but in reality, a lot of people are actually involved in mass civil disobedience on a daily basis, which is kind of funny in my opinion.
Sounds like
so. Yeah. Well, so yeah, you got the title for flag code violations. You've got these neocons calling themselves patriots, and like I said when you had me on before, Louis, I remember when the Patriot movement was cool and it was minarchist. It was minimal government, limited government, constitutionally limited government. Mm-hmm. That's what it, for good or for bad, that's what it was about. And now you have these authoritarians. In much the same way that Chris Cantwell has basically been pointing out how progressive socialists and pacifists have been trying to infiltrate libertarian circles and so forth, I think there's a similar entryist infiltration by neocons against the patriots. And so there's kind of this pincer movement by pacifists, progressive socialists against libertarians, and at the same time neocons going after the patriots and all that, and basically creating this balkanization so that we can never work together and all that with all these fake grievances. I don't care whether it's the Islamic threat, so-called the stealth jihad, or quite possibly maybe the political prisoners who are awfully willing to bend over and do whatever else. And it's very interesting. Notice that too with the Hammonds. The Hammonds did not want any sort of armed standoff like Shane was mentioning earlier. Yet there's all of these other political prisoners, well documented. Not, these are not, national security classified, letters or national security letters or something that's classified information or anything. You have all these other political prisoners, well documented. Everybody from Larry Myers to Skylar Barbeau to Darren Huff's out now, thankfully, to William Wolfe to all sorts of other people. And where are their marches? Where are their rallies? Why is nobody willing to take a federal building, for their sake? I'm just saying, notice that this is very, very opportunistic, what's happened in Oregon. And it's really kind of making a mockery out of actual political prisoners who are, many of whom are still, Larry Myers isn't getting out till 2019, and other people are in there for a lot longer. So that's kind of what's rather interesting, isn't it? This is a very opportunistic thing that's happened there, and it's kind of rather sad, frankly. But no, they're not terrorists.
That's true. And if I could step in for 1 second, regarding obviously the thing going on in Oregon is it's definitely a patriot thing. Now let me just it's going to be kind of the same thing as you're talking about, like how to prioritize grievances. But so let's look at Muslims. How many Americans have had their liberties taken away by Muslims, or how many Americans have been killed by Muslims? It's a rather small amount. I don't remember what the actual statistic is, but it's a rather small number. Now look at like the Hammonds. I would say that would be a more realistic grievance, definitely. But it's prioritization of grievances. The Hammonds are directly feeling the boot of the state. And and they're actually, they're all very, very well aware of that, and it's been happening for a long time, as a lot of them have rightly postulated. But apparently, the prioritization should be more on the federal government, federal government here, rather than as you like to put it, Kyle, across the pond. The priorities of mainline Americans are if I'll put it bluntly, are very, very fucked up.
Yeah, and also one
other Shane.
Well, one other further thing on that too, like I was mentioning a moment ago, even among political prisoners, I would even suggest there might be a prioritization of sorts if you have people like a Pete Santilli or probably more accurately a Blaine Cooper type, where they want to have all these demonstrations, these grand events or whatever to political theater. Let's call it what it is, gentlemen. It's political theater.
We've got to get the attention of the attention of the mainstream press.
Right, and if you're going to do that, it would make more sense to do it for political prisoners that actually would want it, instead of the Hammonds, where they said repeatedly, like Shane was saying earlier, they don't want it. They just want to go and kind of tuck their tails between their legs and submit for reporting to prison and all of that. Skylar Barbeau is like one example I'm mentioning here tonight. Where's his rallies? Where's his wag-flaving stuff going on? But no, the agenda of the celebritarians, of the patriot rock stars, of these messianic figureheads who proclaim themselves to be our gods, which might as well be not that much different from the government at this point in terms of the authoritarianism, is basically that, no, you must go to this thing in Oregon. I saw this all over the internet even earlier. You must go to Harney County, and if you don't go to Harney County, you're not a real patriot.
You're a coward.
Horse crap? Right. Where did this horse crap come from? It just came out of the blue. And hell, Shane, I know you had me on one time about about unjust profiling and how people get demonized and all of that. I mean, guys, how do you not know that some of this isn't being done by those fake online user profiles that the government's been caught, especially the British government specifically, but also the one here, in terms of fake user profiles, in terms of them accusing people of not going to Harney County. This honeypot trap is really what I'm getting at. Just like Alex Ansari said, just like Monograph said, I'll join him. I think it is a honeypot. Now, I think saying it's a false flag, I think, is going a little far at this point, because remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is still an ongoing event.
Yeah, I really don't think so, because, I've made that... I made that assumption last night talking with Shane, and in fact, there are several articles that have come out saying that this could be a false flag in order to start a.
No, there's no evidence of that at this time. Really, the closest thing to that would be, just like I said, the neocon infiltration and the violations of Title IV FLAGO, which in the grand scheme of things is probably a little bit minor, although it does point out some problems in terms of moral integrity and so forth, right? The Patriots want the government to obey the Constitution, the 1787 Federal Constitution, which is the supposed supreme law of the land, but yet they're willing to violate statutory code. So, it's kind of like... Maybe legalistic arguments aren't the way to go here, guys. Maybe you should be arguing in terms of property rights. Look at this whole notion of public property. Look at where they are actually, that wildlife refuge. The claim is like, well, this is, even Ammon Bundy was saying this at the press conference yesterday, this is public property. It is the property of the people and blah-de-blah-de-blah. And I don't know, I think Dr. Murray Rothbard would take issue with that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. If I could mention, since we're kind of talking about these sorts of things, I think it's important to point out the fear mongering and the misinformation being propagated, and even a lot of the figurehead patriots have been saying that, and also that and actually, let me step back. There were a couple videos. I think Blaine Cooper was in one of them, and Ritzheimer was in the other one. The Ritzheimer one is unavailable now. Of course, I'm really mad at myself for not saving that. Archive your stuff, folks. Archive anything that might be important. But they were saying that, like, yeah, we know you may not like the way this has been handled. You may not like what we're doing, but if you're an American, you should still come out here anyways and defend the Constitution. So there are even some folks that acknowledge, like, yeah, you may not like the way that we handled this, but it's time to take a stand. Moving forward with the fear-mongering misinformation, and that's also been some of the Patriot figureheads that are on the ground there, that were on the ground there, we're trying to combat the misinformation and fear-mongering, which I applaud them for that. I think that's important. But I've seen some Infowars actually posted a video right before we came on air, Louis, about it was a 1-minute video, and it was. Who's that? Sergeant Joe Biggs. Joe Biggs. It was him, and he's like, "Yeah, we've gotten reports that they're going to shut down the power and turn off this and make cell phones inaccessible in the area." And he said he alluded to a report, but he didn't say what the report was. They didn't link the report in the description, so I think he's full of shit. I've also seen posts come across that like, "Oh, federal agents have the place surrounded." So there's a lot of fear mongering, and yeah, I think you might be right about that, Kyle. Maybe some of that misinformation or the fear mongering is being propagated by the fake online accounts. But I think that's also a problem as well. It puts people into hysteria, and when you're in hysteria like that, you're not thinking logically or rationally. It's purely emotive. So I think that's definitely a major problem, and hopefully those folks on the ground. Hopefully they will continue, either start or continue, depending on who you're talking to start using logic and rationality.
Okay.
So yeah, that's all I got there.
Okay, so let's start wrapping up. I mean, we've already been on for 1 hour and 30. So what do you? Let me start with you, Kyle. What are your final thoughts?
Well, there's a serious lack of judicial transparency. They're not providing the documents, and thankfully, when Shane and I decided to put our heads together and prepare for tonight's broadcast, we were able to dig things up on short notice. So I hope that kind of demonstrates to your listeners that it is possible if you actually do the work, you can at least find some things out. But really, we shouldn't have had to do that. The Bundy Ranch people, these advocates, these whatever, they should have done the work, and they didn't do it. They'd rather write up things that say, like, notice to agent is notice to principal is notice to agent, all this kind of sovereign citizen rhetoric. And notice also all the spurious conclusions. There was a fellow who, I think he's a vlogger, he was mentioning something, and this is a little bit more in terms of economic reasons. He was kind of insinuating there were some ulterior motives why the federal government is kind of permitting this, or not permitting this, but why any of this is happening in the first place. And supposedly it has to do with like precious metals, like in the area, and like it's inextricably but not really provable or coincidental with what happened in Bundy Ranch. Something about like buried gold and like this. I don't want to repeat the rumor, but basically it's kind of the guy himself. I think his name was Dutch Sins. He was basically claiming that he even admitted it's a coincidence, and he's like trying to portray the coincidence as if it was fact. So you have all these spurious conclusions being made by these sensationalists like Dutch Sense, like these other folks. But if anyone bothered to check, there's a U.S. Geological Survey in 1987 that showed that area in Harney County has some gold, silver, mercury, copper, and molybdenum deposits. So there are some things there, but that doesn't necessarily mean there's natural gas and arsenic. That has not been proven. So there's a lot. So like Shane was mentioning a moment ago, there is misinformation about this quite a bit. And, it's very, very interesting. Usually I try, Louis, not to talk about current events, but I have to admit, in preparation for that history of the Patriot movement I want to write, this is unavoidably an interesting one, which I think is probably going to make it in once the dust settles. But this is kind of what's going on, and unfortunately, I guess we could war game a little bit what could happen. I guess I'll leave that to Shane as far as what could happen with certain things. But that's kind of my problem here. There is a lot of emotive rhetoric. There is a lot of lying by the corporate media, such as the issue about the terrorism doesn't count as that. There is also quite a bit of infiltration going on by the neocons and so forth. This is, and look, let me conclude on this. This is not Bundy Ranch Round 2. Okay, the Bundy Ranch was a victory for the Patriot movement. Even the SPLC said so. They even had openly admitted today was a great day for the Patriot movement. This is not that. There's no clear goal and all that. And, I hate to compliment Stuart Rhodes about anything for obvious reasons because of the fake drone attack at Bundy Ranch, which is a completely different topic altogether. But I will say, he hasn't completely lost his shit with regards to this situation. And, yeah, there is no moral high ground or whatever. So, look, should you go to the Harney County? Should you take a stand for the Constitution and liberty or whatever the hell? I would suggest save your gas money and try to, look at some other form of direct action because I don't think you're going to see any armed resistance in Oregon, quite frankly.
Alrighty, Shane, you go.
Okay, so first off, I'd like to mention a gentleman by the name of Gary Hunt. I mentioned him a couple times previously, I think. But he covers a lot of anything really relating to the Patriot movement. He'll usually come out with a story, all of the political prisoners. Bundy Ranch, he at least wrote one article. He might have written multiple articles on it. But for this specific situation in Harney County, Oregon, we're not really quite sure why it's occurred, but it appears that Gary Hunt has been unable to get the inside information that he's usually able to get. So hopefully we'll see an article from Gary. I'm not sure at this point, but yeah, that's kind of where that's at. So I wanted to get that out in the open. But I guess I'll conclude with this. The alternative media needs to do a better job, and we've talked about this before, Kyle, and I'm going to kind of probably provide a little redundancy here, but I think it's important to mention it, to reiterate. The alternative media needs to do a better job, especially with the misinformation being propagated, like with InfoWars, for example. What's a perfect example? I'm not even sure if they can be considered alternative media anymore, but
no, I wouldn't think so.
I wouldn't either, but they claim that they are. So we'll go, and they're a really good example. When you make claims
for $19.95 plus shipping and handling, go to Louis B. Crotchot Radio Health, We have all the nice. We have Tangy Tangerine, sweetened with mercury, and also we have laboratories now. We have Crotch Shot Radio, Scientific Institute of Excellence. We have formulated the best eye cream for you to get rid of the bags under your eyes.
And the tip is a spear, and you have the documents.
We have this stuff called marijuana, which makes your brain work great. It is the tip of the spear.
There you go. That was pretty good. That was pretty good.
Was that a really good Alex Jones? I don't know.
It was, especially with what you were saying. Yeah.
Please buy my products, because now I have to pay alimony to this Jewish bitch.
There you go. Oh, but yeah, I mean, Infowars is a great example.
And if she takes my kids to Israel, it's her fucking ass. Oh, sorry. Oh, wow.
But yeah, the alternate media needs to do a better job as far as sourcing, like especially with the report released by the Bundys. You need to have sources in your articles. Make it very, very easy for your readers. A lot of people aren't willing to do the hard work and actually follow up on this themselves. Make it as user-friendly as possible. Additionally, it goes with the same thing, transparency. It's hard for people to, unless they're going to take your word, which is not a good idea. It's not a good idea to take anyone at their word. Provide the court documents. I've said it once, I'll say it again. Yeah, get the court documents out there. Make them available. Easy to download in case people want to actually follow up on what you're saying. And with that, I guess that's all I have to say on the subject.
Alrighty then. So I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Glenn Z, Christy Afrovithi, anybody else that's listening, I'd like to thank you for listening. This show will be archived on iHeartRadio. Please subscribe on iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, iTunes, and of course podcast.com. It's online here for free. And of course here on Spreaker.com. Feel free like and share this. And as always, I would like to thank Kyle and Shane for coming on. Check out Kyle's blog, thelastbastille.com, and also Shane's show. He does his show live every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern at libertyunderattack.com. Gentlemen, am I missing anything?
Nope. Nope. I will say this though. The show is actually at fprnradio.com. libertyunderattack.com is just the website.
I see. So FPRN Radio. Kyle, do you have anything to promote?
Let's see. The Political Prisoners Archive is on the libertyunderattack.com website. So if your listeners are interested in seeing how you actually source documents and upload them to the internet, because those PDFs won't upload themselves, you can kind of see what Shane has there hosted in terms of actually providing original source documents, not instead of sensationalistic hyperbole.
This is a clickbait-free zone. I have the documents, and we have records that the federal government wants to take away our tangy tangerine.
Well, Shane really does have the documents. That's the sad part.
Shane has the documents. I haven't had the documents since 1996. In fact, I lost half of the documents in the divorce. And if she takes those goddamn documents to Jerusalem, I'm kicking her ass. Wow. Damn, Alex. Damn, Alex. I'm very upset. I have to pay a shit ton of money just to get this Jewess out of my life so I can bang truther girls.
Or wait, wouldn't that be Leanne McAdoo? Oh, well, bad joke.
I have dual citizenship. I don't have dual citizenship anymore. I have to go live with the caribous in Canada if shit gets bad.
Actually, he built that. Hold on, just on a complete tangent. He actually did build that bunker of his in Austin. He actually bragged about it.
Oh. Knowing his ass, he's gonna do the whole thing like the original host of Coast to Coast AM. What's his name?
George Norrie.
Yeah, he's gonna do the same thing that George Norrie did. He's just gonna go to the Philippines and find himself a nice Filipino wife and marry her.
Well, I think there have been some libertarians like Jeff Berwick and Doug Casey who have expatriated, but last time I checked, AJ was still inside the United States and promoting Donald Trump, who wants to get them muzzies. So I wouldn't expect.
We need to stop Muslim immigration. Why, Alex? I thought that 9/11 was an inside job. You're an asshole. I bought all your DVDs, you son of a... I'm lying. I got them off of torrents. He encourages that. Alright. So anyways, like to thank everyone for listening. And as always, from my house to your house, mahalo.
That's the end of my show. Donk.
Got the fucking documents!